everybody. Welcome to our Impact Talk today. Today, we are elated to have with us Ms. Garima Dutt, President CSR at YES Bank. Thank you so much, ma'am, for joining us today.
My pleasure.
So, ma'am, without further ado, would like to dive right in to the first question. So, could you tell us about your professional journey in the CSR space and how you decided to work here in the first place?
Sure. So I think for me, it was very clear that CSR is a space that I will go in. I think right from my post-graduation, when I was pursuing my master's in social work in TESS, that's where, I kind of took a call that CSR space is where I would be. It had a lot to do with the fact that companies, I'm talking about back in 2006. So companies were just, there were established companies that were doing CSR, but a lot of newer companies also wanting to use that as a differentiator, right? So, and I thought that having done a master's in social work and having that kind of sensitivity towards community, a program that is meant to cater to them would be designed better if I'm playing this field. So that's the reason why I joined CSR. I think journey-wise, it's been campus placement. Tata Motors was a campus placement for me. And with me, the corporate CSR function started, right? So I had a wonderful experience there. I worked for about 6 years. And in that, I not only just, brought out CSR from in and around plant locations to actually look at national level programs, motor mechanic training, and as well as driver training, which till date are now being scaled up. But also had an experience of doing greenfield projects. So 3 plants had started during my tenure in Dharwad, in Uttarakhand, as well as in Gujarat. So I had the experience of, starting up the CSR functions here. And then for about 2 years, I worked in Reliance Foundation. Now that's where I really learned to think scale, right? And a lot of it also, my appreciation for using communications and storytelling to kind of amplify your work also came in there. And then I worked for 6.5 years in GSK Pharma, right? And that was my first MNC. And I think my process orientation has a lot to do with my experience with GSK. And being a healthcare company, I got an opportunity to kind of deep dive in healthcare sector and work on systemic issues, for addressing health, community health, and neonatal, etc. So I joined YES Bank in 2021, and I'm looking after CSR and the foundation. So I completed 2 years on 1st Feb, and it's been exciting so far. A lot of new learning, I think. This is my, again, financial sector is new for me, but I think the opportunity to kind of make a difference in the space of livelihoods, etc., is immense. So I'm excited.
Thank you, ma'am. So what would you say are the core areas of work for YES Bank's CSR wing? And the second part of this question is, what would be your recommendations for social impact organizations who would want to work with YES Bank?
Sure. So at YES, we work in 3 E's. That's employability, entrepreneurship, and environment sustainability. And for organizations where we have implementation partners on board, I think the first and foremost is, of course, intent and values alignment, which is required, right? Beyond statutory processes, it's about which are the organizations that really look at us as, partners and co-creators in a particular project. And there is a level of transparency in terms of, what do they bring to the table and what kind of expertise do they bring and what value addition can we do, right? And I also strongly assess organizations based on an intentionality for having process orientation and MIS systems in place, right? Because great intent also has to be followed with, measurement on ground. So those are a few criteria.
Thank you for that. So how, according to you, has COVID-19 changed the CSR landscape in India? What are the challenges this field has
Mhm.
faced during that time, and how is it working to overcome them according to you?
Um, so there are a lot of questions in one, right? So I think COVID-19 was hard on everybody, right? So I think it definitely brought to the fore that there are systemic challenges, not just in healthcare system, but whether you look at education, whether you look at skilling, we realize that we are not equipped. There's only one way of doing things, right? And I think that's where Phygital came into being, right? So we said that whether it's the skilling space, classroom training has to be supplemented even with bits of digital, right? That was true even for education space. And another thing that brought to the fore was the importance of community leaders, right, for sustaining projects. So a lot of organizations that had this in their program design, where they would empower somebody from the community to kind of, lead change and sustain the program, saw better success, right? So for a lot of our projects also, where there was an intentionality, Vasundhara Sevaks, community health workers, so those are the programs that could sustain, because then the program managers could be in touch with them, and the program continued. So I think that is important, and that's how it was counted also. I don't have to go very far. I'll give you an example of Yes Bank. So, Yes Foundation, which is a social development arm of Yes Bank. There we were leveraging media for social change, right? But pandemic kind of made us pause and reflect on, what's the strategy going forward. And very clearly there was a need to deepen your impact, right? And that is why livelihoods was identified as an area which had suffered quite badly during the pandemic and needed attention, right? So whether we look at employability, whether we look at entrepreneurship, so our entrepreneurship program is a lot focused on strengthening rural economies, right? With whatever we saw during the pandemic with migrant workers, very clearly there's also a need for ensuring that there is less migration, if not reverse migration, and to strengthen rural economies, right? So I think systemic approach, requirement for community leaders for sustaining the project, as well as very identifying which are the areas that got deeply impacted, and then saying that where is it that you can best add value. So it is not to say that only livelihoods suffered, but the sector that we are in, and the ethos that we have, I think that was an area that which we could best support, right? And therefore the intentionality to bring it in our strategy.
Yeah. So, ma'am, can you elaborate on some of the crucial learnings that you have had while spearheading and navigating the CSR wing for Yes Bank? And what would your advice be for young professionals who want to join the space of corporate social responsibility?
Okay, you are making me feel really old, but yes. I think CSR space is ever evolving, right? With every amendment, it brings new learnings, right? So there is definitely an importance of having a process-led intervention. Um, our sector is one that very successfully has shown the strength of partnerships, right? Whether it is with implementation partners, grassroots level partners for implementing, or getting bottoms up data and program design. Collaboration is something that is certainly a key learning. Also working across departments, it is partially led by a lot of these amendments that come, right? But CFO and CS, company secretary, are your best friends, right? So within the organization also working across departments, right? So that is a crucial learning that I've had. Already touched upon the fact that there is a huge potential in scaling your work and making it more visible and getting partners that you are really looking for by impactful storytelling, right? And that is something that should not be undermined when it comes to developing yourself as a CSR leader. Now, see, every professional will have their own journey, right? But I think what is constant, irrespective of which sector you choose to work for, is conscious investment in self-development. Right? We have to be mindful and we have to be intentional about what the learning needs are. Right? Personally, for me, while I would like to believe that there has been on-the-job training in CSR, now I'm shaping myself also to recognize what the sustainability challenges are and how I can probably plug in into sustainability, right? So what is it that I need to do? What course do I target? What assignments do I take on as stretch assignments? I am intentional about my learning needs. Right? So I think that works, and also feedback. Right? It's not just feedback in terms of the leadership feedback that we get in 360 or some organization led, but also feedback from partners that you are working with on how you can better add value, because it once you get that, it always helps you deepen the impact and strengthen your relationships. So that is.
So, ma'am, I'm down to my last question, which is basically what would you say is the vision that you have for Yes Bank CSR wing as well as the CSR space in general for the next 5 years?
So I think CSR space in general, I did, kind of talk about the strength of partnerships, but I think they are quite limited to organizations and implementation partners on ground, right? But there is a lot of scope to leverage partnerships between corporates, right? So that when you are going to a certain area, there is holistic development there, right? And one organization doesn't feel the burden of going through a learning cycle for education also, livelihoods also, health also. But we have partnerships such that we are able to provide solutions, right? So we've done some great work, but I think brilliant transformation is still a step away, right? So that is there. For Yes Bank CSR particularly, I would, impact, of course, is at the core of it, right? But I would also want to see that, how can we maximize fulfillment of sustainable development goals, and also play a very important role in the sustainability journey of the bank. So bank, with their, Yes Bank is one of the very few Indian banks that are in leader scores, whether it's Moody's or CDP or S&P. So there is a sustainability journey that the bank is on, and we need to constantly see how we can align and marry both CSR as well as sustainability goals of the bank. So that is, and even generally for CSR space, I think CSR professionals need to start seeing and playing a more active role in sustainability journeys of their organization, not just limiting themselves to doing community-led projects, but also to see how they can add value in terms of carbon offsets, and how they can add value in terms of inclusion and diversity journeys of their companies. So that is something that I would say.
Thank you, ma'am. It was an absolute pleasure having you today. And thank you so much.
All mine. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye-bye.